welcome to episode number 57 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. My name is Jason Fanelli, and I am the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox PHL The Gambler, having a great Thursday night recording this as we go up on Friday on all of our podcast networks, and Saturday live on the radio. And I hope that you all are having a great week as well. Approaching the weekend. Hope you all have a good weekend planned coming up here in late July. Episode 57 is a big one here, folks. You may recall when I was on the radio with Sean Brace last week, he brought up to me an Inquirer article talking about a bill being introduced into the PA House of Representatives to potentially make esports betting legal in the state of Pennsylvania. A bill that was authored by Representative Ed Neilson from Northeast Philadelphia, State Representative Ed Neilson, happens to be from Northeast Philly. This episode right here that you're listening to, we interviewed him. I had a chance to sit down and speak with Representative Neilson about his esports bill and what he wants to do with it, and I am very excited for you all to listen to it. I do want to mention one quick thing about that interview before we move on. I was having technical issues on my side without knowing it, and it sounds like I'm giving the interview as if I was speaking over the PA at one of the stadiums downtown. I have this crazy echo just on my voice, and I'm not sure what was causing it. So I apologize for my end, but I believe that the interview is plenty clear enough and still good, and I hope that you listen to it in its entirety. After that, I'm going to go back to an old segment about esports betting and bring that back because I feel like it's relevant now after my talk with Representative Neilson. And then finally, we're going to wrap up with some tinfoil hat things, not about esports betting, but about something else that there's just a lot of breadcrumbs in a certain game's DLC or partnerships and stuff like that. And I just can't help but think that there is some fire under that smoke. But before we do anything else, let's get into the 6 in 60 seconds. Shanghai Dragons win the Overwatch League's Summer Showdown over the Chengdu Hunters. Countdown Cup bans have been announced, and they include Echo and Ash for damage, Sigma the tank, and Lucio in support. Also in the Overwatch League, the 2021 Grand Finals will be held in Los Angeles' Galen Center with fans in attendance in September. The Western Playoff Bracket will also be played live in front of fans in the Esports Stadium in Arlington. Elsewhere, Cloud9's Mango wins the Smash Bros. Summit and Super Smash Bros. Melee for the first time ever, defeating Zayn in the Grand Finals after resetting the bracket. Also, California has sued Activision Blizzard over alleged mistreatment of female employees, including multiple accounts of sexual misconduct and bullying. Netflix has confirmed it will add games to existing subscription model at no additional cost and will focus initially on mobile titles. And finally, EA Play 2021 revealed new information on Knockout City, Battlefield Portal, which is essentially a build-your-own Battlefield experience, and the long-awaited return of horror franchise Dead Space. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. And as always, the 6 in 60 seconds are brought to you tonight by the sponsor of Cheesesteaks and Controllers, Ghost Shaver. The Ghost Shaver is designed to feel like an extension of your arm, allowing users to reach anywhere on the head, face, or body. Its precision cutting system gives you a close and smooth shave every single time, thanks to 5 rotary flex-action super thin blades and a patented handheld design that fits into the palm of your hand precisely. Go to ghostshaver.com to check it out and get yours. That's Ghost Shaver, a shave above the rest. Yes, folks, those are your 6 in 60 seconds for the week. Shanghai Dragons once again taking an Overwatch League tournament. I don't see how you can stop them at this point. They are a very, very strong team, and the sky is really the limit for them. And speaking of the sky being the limit, last week when I was talking to Sean Brace on the Daily Ticket, he had mentioned an Inquirer article about a state representative based here in Philadelphia trying to get esports betting legal here in the state of Pennsylvania. Seeing that New Jersey just did it, let's get PA a piece of that pie as well. I wholeheartedly agree, but I had to go to the source himself. So speaking with me right now is State Representative Ed Neilson from Northeast Philadelphia. Ed, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Jason. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for bringing attention to this. This is an important issue for a lot of us.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you bringing this attention to the state government, because I agree. I think esports betting really has a huge ceiling here in the state and throughout the country, and I think New Jersey's going to see those dividends paid very quickly, which could then make PA even quicker into the running here. But my first question is a very simple one. Why now?
Well, this is just not a why now for me. It's more like a why not now.
Okay, that's fair.
The time is right for a couple reasons. The pandemic has spurred massive growth in the interest on online competitive gaming, and there's increased likelihood of unregulated, off-the-books sports betting, including esports, that's already occurring. So neighboring states, like you identified earlier, such as New Jersey, are seizing the opportunity and deemed it as important in Pennsylvania. That's why I introduced it. But in 2019 is when this actually started. And 2019 was the first time the PA House passed a resolution designating February as Esports Month, bringing the attention to the industry. I had a roommate and a colleague of mine from Erie, PA, Representative Bizarro, on a visit to his alma mater, and he saw a classroom full of gamers. When he came back to Harrisburg, he wanted to do something special for these young adults that were in college. He himself was in his 20s at the time, made an inquiry to the PA House Legislative Bureau. And they told him, you might want to speak to Neilson about it because he's been working on this issue for quite a few months. So that he did. And because my investigation found out that colleges throughout the state, right in their own backyard, had clubs. Esports was the new chess club for the young men and women. And I was gracious to be joined by a lot of people from Harrisburg University, right around the Capitol, when we passed it, and it opened up my eyes even further to the issue.
Yeah, like there's a whole, I know you said colleges, but there's also a high school esports league, HSEL, that's growing throughout the country. Not many schools in this area getting involved in that. I believe there was Garnet Valley that I was looking at when I was looking at the schools that had registered, but that is also a very burgeoning area as well. What about esports in general attracted your attention going back to when you first started working on this? Who initially introduced you to competitive gaming, and what was it that you thought basically brought you to where you are today?
It's a crazy story, and I remember telling it to these kids from Harrisburg. As a parent, I got 5 boys.
5 boys, oh boy.
Yeah. Nothing drives you crazier than when a lawn needs to be mowed and your boys are up in the room playing video.
My mom is laughing right now. We're recording this early. It has not actually hit air yet, and she's laughing and she doesn't know why. Because she will hear that and say 100% yes.
As frustrated as it is, my wife, who's wonderful, like your mom, a good woman keeps the household together, and she suggested instead of fighting with the kids, why don't I try and take an interest what they're interested in to build that father-son bond, as we say, And so she handed me 2 tickets and a hotel reservation for me and my son Kevin. And the following weekend, we went off to New York to attend the 2018 Overwatch Grand Finals.
Okay.
And, look, everybody knows Philly's filled with sports fans,
That's right.
And wouldn't you know it, I go up there to New York, and there I am cheering for our own Philadelphia Fusion. And let me tell you, I became a Carp fan real quickly as my kid educated me on the gameplay. The kid was amazing. But it saw a little different. I saw it on the big screen in front of me, and there's nothing you can't even explain it. It's like experiencing that first concert.
Yep.
And it's like, wow. And I actually get it. Before I looked at all these little monsters on the screen fighting around, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. What the hell's wrong with my kid? So this stadium was sold out. And I went, this is crazy. And I wasn't the oldest guy in the room. So when I got back to Harrisburg, I'm telling the story, and he says, you know what, Eddie, Billy Thomas, he's really into that stuff. You should talk to him. Now, this guy, Bill Thomas, at the time was the executive director for the gaming committee, and I was the vice chair of the gaming committee. And he says, listen, this is something that we can capitalize on. And the two of us got together, started doing it. And, and it didn't stop there either, because you mentioned earlier about the article in the Inquirer.
Yep, that's right.
Comcast is building a multi-million-dollar facility, first one in the United States. Sixers are operating an NBA 2K league. The Eagles, they're going to do something. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, and here I am, little kid from Northeast Philly, and Robert's the owner of Comcast. This is probably how he connected with his kid, because his son's in charge of this whole project.
That makes perfect sense. That does make perfect sense. And yeah, I could see how the father-son bond, not unlike yours, then translated into what Comcast is doing now. Now, I understand that project is still not restarted post-pandemic. They're still on hold there, correct? Do you have any insight into that?
They are. COVID did a lot of things to a lot of places.
That's right.
And the gathering has still been an issue. I would hope that would start breaking again now, because what we do is we do see the restrictions are down.
Yep.
But we see COVID cases going up again across the country. So when you're spending millions of dollars like that, any corporation, no matter how much big you are, how small you are, you want to be careful.
That's true.
Because you want to be able to put people in these facilities safely, and with stuff creeping up, But I would hope by the end of summer that this is going full tilt. I was down towards the facility over the weekend, and there's a lot of action down there. There's a lot of people going back to. I went to a Phillies game over the weekend, and I didn't bet, but there was a lot of people there, and people are starting to get out and vaccinated and starting to travel in these circles again.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Now, the first thing that I think of is there are some esports events that sometimes feature players under the age of 18. Obviously, the bettors would have to be 18 and over. That makes sense. But with the events where there are minors, like my mind goes to 2019 Fortnite World Cup up in New York. The winner, Montgomery County native Kyle Giersdorf, was 16 at the time. How do you get around that? With those events, you just couldn't place any bets on? Could you place bets on those events but not on those players? Maybe different props? What's the negotiation there?
Well, look, nobody wants. I don't know anybody who wants to associate gambling with kids.
Absolutely
myself.
Not.
Okay. The competitions involving players under 18 would not be eligible of any kind in my legislation. However, we got to approach this thing in a different way, and this is how I feel. I mean, it might change through the process with hearings and stuff like that. But I look at it like high school sports versus college sports. You can't wager on high school games, nor should you on any youth sports.
Right.
So why should you be able to do it on esports?
That's fair.
With an age limit in place, it would create another avenue, such as a juniors league, that will accommodate the younger players in the sport. And I think that any state considering esports wagering should keep that standard, because it's gives people goals. It gives kids goals. Hey, look, I'm on the junior team now, and I'm going to go up, and I'm going to be in the pros. So it's a stepping stone, and it would even open the esports gaming industry to more people, because there's only so many teams. But if I have Philadelphia Fusion, and I'm going to keep on them because, I'm a Carp guy.
Local team.
Yep. So if we do that, maybe we have the Junior Fusion, and now there's a whole nother team back there. And just like we saw, I guess, back then, because my son was explaining it to me, and I mean, I'm not going to be ignorant to it, because he knows more about this than I do, but they had to go to the farm team and pick somebody else up because someone got hurt.
They did. They have it's Overwatch Contenders, it's called. Fusion University is ours. So there is a farm system within the Fusions. hierarchy. However, I will say that the Fusion University was disbanded for a while. They only recently came back. So in that interim, there would have been I would have liked there to have been a better place to pick some of those farm teams. But yes, now Fusion University is back in action.
Now, you spoke about high schools earlier,
Right.
and I know my youngest is 15, and he's in high school, and they're bringing my other son in from college, the one who introduced me to this,
Yeah.
and they're talking to him about doing this esports. Like I said earlier, it's the new chess club.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It's that person who doesn't want to play baseball, doesn't want to play football, doesn't feel like getting hit with a lacrosse stick forever. It gives them something to do in a club and a thing. So that would create this avenue and those farm teams moving up.
No, I am fully in agreement there. It makes a lot of sense to me. Now, whether or not the leagues themselves would start to structure themselves that way is a whole different story. But at least the groundwork is here in the early going with stuff like this. So
And that's something. I mean, it might hurt that first year or two.
Sure.
It might hurt, but it's the long term.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what people have to open their eyes to is the long-term effect. There's a lot of opportunities in esports, and it's not just the kid playing the game itself.
Yeah, it can be a very.
People don't understand what goes into it. Like my son's big in statistics.
Mm-hmm.
He's a math genius, and he does all the stats, and he knows who can. So that's the kind of stuff that's back there behind the scenes that we don't see going on, and even the programmers and stuff like that, all the scenarios that they can put up and practice on this scenario, that scenario, all that is the background. It's kind of like having the cheerleaders on the sideline or at the drama club, the people working the cameras. There's all kinds of opportunities here for multiple kids who may not be that all-star baseball player. And I only said that because the All-Star game was on the other night.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that from a high school standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. But getting back to the esports bill itself, what either immediate or long-term benefits, other than the obvious, can you see coming from this bill should it pass? Not only for the state of Pennsylvania, but for perhaps other states throughout the union who may be looking into this as a potential option for them.
Well, we can see it's going to help. Esports is everywhere. If we didn't hit COVID, I really believe we would have solved this.
I agree.
COVID did something to it rocked our world, everybody's world, in all different pieces. If PA was looking for a funding stream, they would have passed this.
Mm-hmm.
They would have passed this. The feds came in with so much money. We weren't looking for money. But at the time when I introduced this, I thought it was timely because I said, hey, look, they're going to need some money. And we make money. Pennsylvania makes money off of gaming. And to regulate it is important for everybody, every Pennsylvania. So we don't have the illegal betting and stuff like that. And to make certain that, everything's on the up and up. It protects the players. When you do this, there's so much more. The gaming in Pennsylvania keeps our taxes low. Although we all see them go up all the time, it does keep them in check. So it is an important industry for Pennsylvania. We are 54% stockholders, and we never had to put a dime up. Just to put it in perspective, we get 54 cents out of every dollar that's lost on a slot machine. So we are the major stockholders, and we need to make certain that everything's legit. So There's benefits there. The job alone are benefits because, like I said, it's not just about one player or a 10-man team. That 10-man team has 100 people working behind them. So it's about jobs. So I try and create stuff. Everything I do has a thought about jobs and future jobs. Look, we're seeing robots deliver pizzas, okay? So what are our kids going to do? And like I said, I have 5.
You got to
Okay?
look out for all 5 of them. I get that.
Gotta look out for all of them.
I get that. I have 2 myself, so I completely understand the need to make the future good for your children and for their children and so on and so forth. So yeah, I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, I imagine that there are some detractors or critics of this bill of making esports gambling legal in Pennsylvania. What are some of those detractions you have heard so far, and how do you respond to them?
All right, so gambling in itself is the biggest criticism and distraction we have in PA. A lot of people don't believe in it. A lot of people don't depend on it because it's an unpredictable revenue.
Okay.
So, but the largest, like I said, it has been COVID, and it needed to, we haven't been able to recover from it, and it took the ball. There's so many more pressing issues right now that this got sidetracked.
Yeah.
But there's no real criticisms. There's nobody that's not open to the fact. I think it's more of an education. We have to educate the legislators because, look, we're not all kids. Not everybody has a kid like mine.
Right.
So we have to educate, as an industry, we have to educate the other legislators to say, hey, look, this is something that is good for PA. It's happening all over anyhow. We need to not only to protect the players, but protect ourselves. Because it's more about, I look at it as the players. If we don't put any kind of regulation in here, it could go south quick. And this is the average now, the demographics you look at on esports competitor is about 25 years old.
Yeah.
Spectators are between 18 and 34. And they're the ones we have to capture. They're not watching football games and they're not watching horse racing. They're doing esports. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've watched now since going to the finals, the ones in person. I watch it with my kids.
It's very engaging.
It is. And a lot of times I'll be asking questions which drives them nuts because I try to understand, because they do multiple games, not just the one I saw.
Right.
They do multiple games, and for me, that's a little distracting. But other than that, no one's been real pressed against this. In fact, I teamed up with a senator in 2018, but it never went anywhere because we live in a Republican House and a Republican Senate in Harrisburg, and they're in the majority. So I got a Republican senator to introduce a bill attempting to show people the economic impact. And we talk about that, and we have to look. If Comcast does this center down in South Philadelphia like they plan on, people will come from all across the country, just like I went to New York. I filled hotel rooms. I had to eat. All that is all around esports. And we can capture that right here in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I hope that arena gets built, because I would love to see all those people coming from miles around just to see it. The first one of its kind here on the East Coast, for sure. So one last question to get you out of here, Representative. Will we see you in an esports competition anytime soon, and what game are you playing, if so?
All right, so look, I played Doom on my HP 386 computer in the Stone Ages. I remember when I moved up to a 486 and I was able to play Rainbow Six on a floppy disk.
Okay.
So as time moved on, so did I. My fingers are a bit slower, but I can still throw a couple touchdowns in Madden, and I'm always up to fill a Warzone team on Call of Duty because my 15-year-old and his friends, they're sure to play or two once in a while, and they always call me.
Okay.
And look, and for the record, the only time my son Ryan and his buddies came in first place when I was on the team.
That's right.
Okay? So I'm never down. I'm not going to give you my username because they have my username, and it's not old gray-haired guy. It's something else. But look, it gives me time with my boys, and I'm certain that I'll share those opportunities with my grandkids. I have my own Xbox down in my my little place area. They gave me one so they can connect me at any time they need me.
That's great. That is great. Well, Representative Neilson, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to see the progress on this bill and for esports in Philadelphia in general. I am delighted to see that there is a champion in the government for this industry because I think Philadelphia could be a great hub, if not the best hub on the East Coast for esports in the coming years with the right funding, with the right education, and with the right moves like the Fusion Arena. Representative Neilson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me.
All right, now moving on here in Cheesesteaks and Controllers. That was a fantastic interview with Representative Neilson. I am glad that he was willing to sit with me and talk about his esports bill. I hope you all learned a little bit from that, and I apologize once again for the technical issues that I was having on my end. I just was trying a brand new microphone and didn't realize that I sounded like I was on the Phillies PA system. So I hope you enjoyed my best Dan Baker impression as I interviewed Representative Neilson. Moving on to the second segment of the day, I wanted to go back and revisit a segment that I did 15 episodes ago on episode 42 because I feel like it's relevant to be paired with the interview that I just did. So back then I talked about if esports betting were to become legal in New Jersey at the time and now Pennsylvania, what could you actually bet on? For those who aren't familiar with esports, what kind of statistics or what kind of things could you bet on in some of these big time esports games? So I've taken that segment from episode 42 and I've completely recreated it right here, right now, 457, and you can take a listen to that as it was then and as it is now for the state of PA, and get just a bit of a primer, if you're still listening after the interview, as to what you could bet on in esports. Enjoy. Interesting situation we have going here. Esports is growing on its own, but esports betting is its own sort of niche market. A lot of people may see that as, how the heck do you bet on video games, competitive video games? What could you possibly get so granular on? It's not like the NBA or the NHL where you can bet on goals scored or rebounds, statistics like Kilkenny does every Monday at 5:30 on the Moonshot. You should listen to that. And I say to you that you are not researching enough, because yes, you can. You can absolutely get granular as hell in this sort of betting realm. And I am here to tell you and give you examples just how to do that. And I think the first and best example would be League of Legends. Now, League of Legends, obviously, huge esport, probably the biggest one in the world, the one that I would equate to FIFA if I had to pick, if I was comparing esports to real sports, not real sports, but classic sports leagues. The League of Legends to FIFA comparison is pretty close, and they actually get very in-depth with the statistics that they offer on their website, LOL Esports, League of Legends Esports.com. So if you go to LOLesports.com and you look at any game that is completed from any time, they bring you to the video on demand from that match. They give you they split them up into game 1, game 2, and game 3, or 4 or 5, however many were in the series. And then as you watch the video on demand, or if you watch live on LOLesports.com, it updates the statistics that each player is earning in real time. So you can see how much gold a player is earning, what hero they're playing as, their kill, death, assist numbers, how many small minions they've killed, how many wards they've placed or destroyed, things like that. You can see how high their attack damage gets, their speed gets, their armor gets. So there are plenty of ways that you could turn this into a sort of prop bet situation on esports, on something like DraftKings Sportsbook's app, let's say. So for example, I am looking at game 2 of a match from this past weekend between 100 Thieves and Dignitas. Okay? And on this page, it shows me all 5 players and what they have done for game 2. Now, I've switched the video on demand to the end, to the analysts going over at the end, so that I fast forwarded to see the complete number of statistics for the match. And I am looking at all different players from the team, and I'm seeing what they have done in their respective roles. So the first one I'm looking at is 100 Thieves Someday versus Dignitas's Fake God. They are top laners. So in League of Legends, you have 5 roles, either the top lane of the arena, the middle lane of the arena, or the bottom lane of the arena. And then also you have support and jungler, which is someone who goes in between the lanes and defeats the minions and things like that. So, looking back at the top laners here, Someday versus Fake God, this clip shows me kill-death assist ratio. So, Someday had 6 kills, 2 deaths, and 2 assists to Fake God's 1 kill, 3 deaths, and 3 assists. Someday had 322 minion kills to Fake God's 286. Fake God had 26% champion damage share to Someday's 22. Someday also won with the wards destroyed, wards placed, and gold earned. Fake God won in kill participation. And then an attack in the statistics down below, Someday took 4 of the 6 categories. Fake God took 1, and 1 was a tie. No one went for lifesteal. So just from these numbers, we could pick one of the laners to have top laners to have more kills. In this case, Someday would have had more. We could pick one of them to have more or less damage share. In this case, Fake God would have had more. We can do over-unders on kills or deaths or assists. We can do over-unders on gold earned. We can do over-unders on attack damage. We could do over-unders on how many categories of the 6 stats that are there will go to one side or the other. So if it's over under 3 statistical categories that Someday will have over Fake God, if you bet the over, Someday had 4, so you win that bet. That sort of thing. You could do over unders on any of these. You could do head to heads on any of these, and then you could branch out into gold leads for the entire team. By the end of the match, who had more gold when the Nexus was broken and a team claimed victory. So in this case, that would have been, it looks like in Game 2, it was the blue team, who I believe is 100 Thieves in this case, took out Dignitas in Game 2 of this. So you can look at this and see total game gold, which was 72,000 for 100 Thieves and 56.9 for Dignitas. You can look at the number of kills, 20-7. You can look at the towers, 11-2, and there's so many things that a bookie can look at and see what can we glean from this in order to make it part of a betting situation. There are a couple of big time creatures that appear in the jungles. You could bet on which team or which player, for maybe better odds, is going to be the one to kill the Baron or the Dragon or stuff like that. League of Legends is so fertile ground for props. It's pretty insane. Handicapping it is going to be very difficult as the seasons go on, particularly in the leagues outside of the U.S., but it is possible. It is very much possible in League of Legends to make a sound and profound betting profile that players could bet on, from anything from straight up victory or defeat to more granular things like kills, deaths, assists, gold earned, towers destroyed, those things like that. So League of Legends absolutely has a lot of potential for that. The second game that has a pretty decent amount of potential in my eyes is Valorant. We talk about Valorant a lot on this show just because it's the hottest esport that there is right now. Nothing bigger than Valorant at the moment. Valorant has not quite as many instances of being able to bet on games. You can bet on kills. You can bet on kill-death ratio. If I'm looking at the statistics, Liquipedia is a great esports wiki site for things like League of Legends, for Valorant, for CSGO, for a bunch of things. So you could look at this and bet that by the end of the North American Stage 1 Masters Tournament, the player with the most kills throughout the entire tournament will be Baby Bay from the FaZe, and you'd win. You could bet that 10Z would have the best kill-death ratio of the entire tournament. And you would be correct. He had a 1.44. Things like that. You could talk about kills per map. You could talk about kills, deaths, assists again. You could talk about the agents being used. You could bet on which agent would be the most used throughout the tournament. You could bet on the teams that you think will win by the time the tournament is beginning. Heck, Stage 2 Challengers is starting now or next week. And you could place a bet now on who will win the Masters tournament 4 weeks from now, if the betting's good. The Sentinels won the first Masters, so they would be the favorite. They beat the FaZe in the finals, so the FaZe would be the second favorite. And then of the teams that made the top 8 in Masters, so the top 8 teams in the odds, I would say, you have Sentinels, you have FaZe, Immortals, 100 Thieves, Luminosity, Gen G, Team Envy, and XSET. Those would be your top teams, and then you could go from there. As the Challengers weeks go on, odds could change. If players are suspended, or if players are replaced, or if teams just back out, like Dignitas's male Valorant team did. There are ways to do this. There are absolutely ways to plan this and handicap this based on what's happened before. Now, Valorant now is still in a bit of a Wild West period. We're still 3 months away from the game itself's 1-year anniversary. Not even the league. Just the game itself is not even a year old yet. So there is still a lot of wiggle room that could be happening as far as structure and things that are going on, as far as like tournaments and stuff like that. I heard a lot from players that I have interviewed that the number of qualifiers versus tournaments is a little confusing and it just needs to be streamlined a little bit. So structures could change and that could change the betting portfolio. But right now, you could bet on kills per game. You can bet on how many maps. Like right here, I'm looking at the Masters bracket from Stage 1. And Sentinels beat Luminosity in the first round of the upper bracket 2-1. It was 13 points to 8 points in the first map for Sentinels, 14-12, needing a tiebreaker for Luminosity in the second map, or an overtime, I guess they call it. And then the third map, 13-6 in favor of Sentinels. Now, you could bet on final scores, like 13-8, 13-6, 13-2, whatever it would be. You can bet on the scores at halftime. The score at half in Game 1, for example, ended 13-8, but at halftime was 8-4. And then Sentinels only needed 5 more points to win. In the 14-12 Luminosity match, the score at halftime was 8-4, and then LG scored the second half was mirrored 8-4 Luminosity, causing the 12-12 tie and going to overtime. So there are definitely possibilities here, I think, for Valorant sports betting. Good Valorant sports betting. Can get into the statistics a little bit more. Not quite as many statistics as League of Legends. This is like a middle ground between League and what I'm about to get into. But Valorant has a good possibility for betting as well. And with that, also Counter-Strike Global Offensive, since the games are so similar. Overwatch kind of fits into this situation a little bit, but also with Overwatch, you could talk about tank damage as a prop bet. You could talk about healing and healing damage as a prop bet for the healers, the supports, or the tanks' damage outputs. You could bet that Carpe and Rascal for the Fusion will be the highest output of damage for the entire season, which I would bet right now if I could, but that's because I'm a Fusion homer. But yeah, so this is like the middle ground. It's not quite as stat intensive as a League of Legends or a Dota 2, but it's also not as difficult. Not difficult, but it's not as barren of a betting portfolio as what I'm about to get into now, and that is fighting games. Because of course I'm going to talk about fighting games. When do I ever not talk about fighting games? So what makes this interesting is in other tournaments you have, like, let's take EVO 2019, for example, right? EVO 2019 had a bunch of games on its slate, 9 games total, and you signed up. They signed up as many as they could, and they ran that tournament with however many people signed up. The Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Tournament had 3,300 players in it. Just about. 3,300 players. That is impossible to handicap. When the brackets come out on Smash.gg, then maybe you could figure out who has the the easiest road, or who's grouped together in pools, and then who's going to win. You could do betting on the pools, then do betting on the top of the finals of the pools, and then the second round, third round. You could do the betting inside the bracket once they come out. You don't have a lot of time because those brackets don't come out for like 4 or 5 days before the tournament. And you could get into like character usage, what character is going to be used the most throughout the tournament, or damage outputs game to game, or who's going to win series, stuff like that. But what I like as far as fighting games and the future of fighting game sports betting is the We Play Esports Ultimate Fighting League, or the WUFL, which started last week with Mortal Kombat 11, is going on right now with Soul Calibur 6, that I believe next week has a Tekken 7. 16 players. Split into 2 groups, Group A and Group B. Every player in a group plays every other player in a group first to 5, and then the wins, the losses, the average wins are all taken. The tables are ranked from 1 to 16, and then there is a bracket of the playoffs where everybody makes the playoffs. It looks like 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so the top 12 make the playoffs. 4 people are left out, but the bottom, not the bottom 4, but the next 4. So 9 through 12 are immediately slotted into the lower bracket where they have 1 loss and they're out, as opposed to the upper bracket where it's double elimination. So here, once that bracket is made, it becomes FIFA sports betting. You can bet on which player you think is going to have the easiest road. You could bet on, it's filling out a bracket like NCAA. You could bet game by game. You could bet through the entire tournament. You could bet how many rounds as a prop bet, how many games will be won. Like, for example, the finals of the upper bracket were Sonic Fox versus Tekken Master. First of all, the fact that a guy named Tekken Master is a pro in Mortal Kombat and not Tekken makes me very, very happy. It makes me laugh every single time. But the upper bracket final was 3-1 Tekken Master over Sonic Fox. I would, if I was betting that match, I probably would have bet something like 3-2 Sonic Fox winning. But that's not what happened. I would have lost that bet. Another thing you could bet in a fighting game tournament is the idea of a bracket reset. And what that means is, in grand finals, you have the last player standing from the upper bracket and the last player standing from the lower bracket, and they do a best of 7 series. They've been best of 5 up till now, but they do a best of 7 series. If the player from the lower bracket beats the player from the upper bracket, gets to 4 wins first, the bracket is what they call reset, and then there's one more best of 7 series to determine the winner. Basically, it's double elimination. The player coming from the upper bracket hasn't lost yet. So if they lose in the grand finals, the bracket resets, and we have the last showdown. Betting on whether or not there'll be a reset in the grand finals, that could be a prop bet. That's why I bring it up. So as you can see, there are plenty of different possibilities for esports betting, should this become legal in New Jersey and hopefully in Pennsylvania. The statisticians and the number guys, the math guys, will be looking at things like League of Legends, where they can really get into some crazy prop bets and parlays. Valorant and Overwatch League and Counter-Strike Global Offensive have a decent amount of options as far as what you can bet on. And then fighting games also do too, but they require a lot of research and a lot of time that a bettor may not have. But if esports betting becomes legal in New Jersey, I highly recommend you at least give it a shot. And I imagine that if it does happen, someone might be able to give you a little bit of advice. Finally, tonight on the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, I'm going to get a little bit conspiratory. So, if that's even a word. So this is not anything important. It's not like I'm going to be overturning, some big corporation. I'm not, nothing like that. This is basically, there's a bunch of breadcrumbs that I'm seeing with a particular game and a particular organization outside of video games. And it's making me think that this partnership goes farther than what we have already seen. So if you're not aware of what I'm thinking based on what I'm talking about, based on those vague, teases that I just gave you, let me take you back to October of 2019. I believe that's when it was. Might have been October of 2018, but October, Halloween time. And one of the, oh no, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong date. I'm talking about, it should be in June of 2019. We are talking about AEW's Fyter Fest. Now, AEW Fyter Fest in 2019 featured a six-man tag team match. I don't remember who the opponents were, but the face team, the good guy team, was Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Now, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks came out because it was Fyter Fest being held at Community Efforts Orlando, which is a giant fighting game tournament, CEO, came out dressed as Ryu, Ken, and Akuma, right? This was the first little reference of Street Fighter in AEW. Since then, multiple pieces of apparel in an AEW Street Fighter collaboration have come out. Now, at first, I thought it was just going to be like a one and done, to celebrate the fact that Kenny Omega was part of the summer showcase, I believe, for Street Fighter V when they first showed Season 5 last summer. I want to say last August. He was a part of that. He was the one that announced that Rose would be coming back as part of Season 5 of Street Fighter V. There was a t-shirt that had come out then, and I thought that was going to be it. I didn't think much more of it. And then Dan was released. And when Dan was released, there was another AEW Street Fighter collaboration with Dan playing Street Fighter 2 on a machine against Kenny Omega. Fun little t-shirt. You don't really think much of it. Whatever. But since then, I count now with the Jon Moxley versus Guile shirt this week and the Hikaru Shida versus Cammy shirt last week, there have been 6 AEW and Street Fighter t-shirts in this partnership. And you may be thinking, big deal. Why is a t-shirt partnership anything that I should be concerned about? What are you getting at here? Get to the point. What I'm trying to say is, and here's where the tinfoil hat comes on a little bit. I think that this partnership goes way beyond apparel. And what I'm getting at is Season 5 of Street Fighter V, when it was first announced back in that August show, revealed 4 of their 5 characters. They revealed Dan, they revealed Rose, they revealed Oro, and they revealed Akira Kazama from Rival Schools. That was the big announcement from that day. However, there are 5 characters in the Season Pass, not including the extra character they put in, who is basically just a mimic, where you pick him and it gives you a random character to use, 12, or 11, excuse me. That's not who I'm talking about. It was 4 characters revealed and a 5th shadowy character yet to be unveiled. I think that 5th character is Kenny Omega. I think Kenny Omega is in Street Fighter V as the final DLC character. I think that he may have voiced his own character. He knows Japanese. He was in NJPW for how long? So he could voice himself in Japanese and English. I think he will use his wrestling moveset, his pro wrestling moveset, as his moveset in Street Fighter. Maybe they'll give him some enhanced moves like a fireball or some sort of like, fire and an uppercut. Kind of like how Ken has that sort of thing. But I do think strongly that when that 5th character is announced by Capcom, it will be the current AEW World Champion, Kenny Omega. And I honestly think that is the smartest decision in the entire world, because that would be the first time a guest character infiltrated a core Street Fighter game. And when I say guest character, I mean like outside of Capcom. Rival Schools, technically Akira Kazama is a guest character, but that Rival Schools Street Fighter universes have been crossed for quite a while now. Sakura was in Rival Schools or Project Justice back in the PS1 Dreamcast days. So Akira coming over to Street Fighter isn't really that big of a stretch when you consider that. However, pulling someone not only from outside of Capcom, But outside of video games, a self-proclaimed gigantic video gamer in Kenny Omega, one of the biggest professional wrestling figures in the world today, and one of the biggest gamers you'll ever meet in the public eye. And to bring him into Street Fighter would be a crossover for the ages. I do think that he could play very well. I mean, they've already added luchadors to the game in El Fuerte and Street Fighter 4, so we've had that before. Zangief, however you say it, is still there. The big old Russian bear. He's a giant wrestler. There was an oil wrestler in Hakan for a while. He is no longer in the game, unfortunately. So designing a moveset around Kenny Omega, making his critical art, his super move, the one-winged angel move that he uses. Maybe you could add a couple flips to it or make it a little more flashy. You could make his V-trigger move the V-trigger. It's why it's called that. He's named his wrestling move after Street Fighter V, and he's had it like that since the game came out. It's not like it's even a new change. I don't know why I feel this. I don't know why I have this in my bones, but there's just so many little clues that I'm seeing and so much collaboration that I'm seeing between AEW and Street Fighter, who otherwise has no affiliation to each other whatsoever. Just these t-shirts and that one appearance by Kenny O back in August of 2020 in the summer broadcast, I think it was called. And I'm bringing this up now because I feel like we're due for the next Street Fighter V update. Dan came out in the winter. Rose came out in the spring. And we're now in summertime. So if they're planning the next reveal, which would be an Oro deep dive, I imagine that would be sometime in August to keep the timeline going. And then you have Akira come out in the fall. And then you have the last character come out after that. Now is the time that we could find out, or soon is the time that we could find out, that my theory is not crazy and that this Kenny Omega to Street Fighter thought that I have is the real deal. It's just a matter of whether or not it becomes real life. And I will be waiting with bated breath for the next Capcom announcement when Street Fighter V is going to get updated, because believe me, it has to be the next one, right? I don't think they'll wait until the showcase for Akira Kazama to reveal that last character. Eventually, people are going to want to know who this fifth character is. You're going to have to tell them. Now is the time, or whatever your next update, Capcom, is the time to let us know what the heck is going on with this character, this last character, and to make it Kenny Omega, to make Kenny Omega the first ever Street Fighter crossover character outside of Capcom in a core Street Fighter game would be super cool for a guy who's played Street Fighter his whole life. Like I said, a self-proclaimed huge fan of fighting games and Street Fighter. In fact, I believe at E3 2018, might have been 19, but one of those E3s, the Elite, the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega took on the New Day, Austin Creed, Kofi Kingston, and Big E Langston in Street Fighter on Capcom's stage at that E3. So that relationship between Kenny O and Capcom goes back many, many years. And I feel like now is the time to make that partnership ascend to the next level, to a level that's never been seen before in fighting games. And you bring in Kenny Omega as the final DLC character in Street Fighter V. I could be crazy. I could be, picking this out of my backside, but I just think there's a lot of smoke there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. We will find out whenever Capcom's next presentation is, hopefully soon, because I want to see if it's Kenny Omega, and honestly, I really want to play with Akira and Oro, so if those characters could come out, I would appreciate it. And with that, we are at the end of episode 57 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. As always, my name is Jason Fanelli, and I am the Esports and Gaming Insider for Fox PHL The Gambler. I am eternally grateful that you have listened to this entire episode, especially considering the annoying tech issues that I had during my interview with Representative Ed Neilson of Northeast Philadelphia. I want to thank him for his time and his team for coordinating with me to get that interview going. I think it's very important that we follow that esports betting rule. I do think there are more positives than negatives, and I do think it would have a positive effect on things in the city and around the country as more states adopt the plan. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the content here, and I hope you continue to enjoy Cheesesteaks and Controllers every single week on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and now on Spotify. So, thank you once again for your time and your attention. I wish you the best weekend and the best week right behind it, and we will be back here next week with number 58, talking about them video games over and over again. Thank you. Signing off. Until next week. See you.